Hi, I'm Jody Mojatol, President of the North Pond Association. Welcome to our workshop. Are You Buff Enough? How to Become LakeSmart-er workshop is in its, I think, sixth year. And I want to welcome everybody and thank you so much for joining us. At the top of this workshop, I am going to share with you a little bit about Linda Rice. And Linda has been a force with the North Pond Association for many years now. And we want to make sure that she's retiring. We want to make sure we're sending her off properly and to make sure we can show her as much love as possible. We would like to dedicate this rain garden to Linda and tribute to Linda and all of the work that she does. And she takes care of things and waters them here at the Best Management Practices area. You can see over to my right, there are the plants that will be given away if you're going to join us on this workshop. You qualify to have a free plant. You pick it up tomorrow Saturday today between 12 and 4, sorry. And so we have the ladies blowing in the background. We have our beautiful plants that we've been planting for years now, growing greatly. So this rain garden is dedicated in tribute to Linda Rice. And this is the unveiling of a beautiful plaque saying so. Thank you again to everybody for joining us.
Now, how am I going to talk to this workshop without choking up?
All right.
Congratulations.
And so right now, I would also, on behalf of everyone on the North Pond Association, would like to present this plaque. Sorry about this. I don't know why it's doing that. To Linda. It says, the North Pond Association is forever grateful to Linda Rice. Oh, it's invisible on the screen. For her years of dedication as NPA Secretary, LakeSmart Evaluator, North Pond CBI, Volunteer Coordinator, IPP Leader, Watershed Steering Committee, Grange Grounds LakeSmart BMP Overseer, Lake Trust Member for Seven Lakes Alliance, Buffer Workshop Coordinator, Earth Day Cleanup Coordinator, Plants of North and Little Ponds Book Research Writer, and go-to gal for all things aquatic plants. Your devotion and love for North Pond to raise awareness along with your countless volunteer hours will always be remembered. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, North Pond Association.
Oh, here you go. And thank you, everybody, for coming to the workshop via Zoom. It's probably going to be a condensed version. I am going to now hand it over to Lauren because, I mean, how do you say anything more than we've already said? Linda is a force to be reckoned with, and happy retirement, Linda. And thanks for still being our LakeSmart coordinator this summer.
Thank you, Jody.
I think Charlie's presentation is perfect.
Yes. So I would like to introduce Charlie Bader, who is our keynote speaker this morning. He is the Seven Lakes Alliance DEP 319 Grant Projects Director for the Belgrade Lakes watershed. Charlie has been with Seven Lakes Alliance, formerly the BRCA, for 8 years. As a former executive director for the Belgrade Regional Conservation Alliance, BRCA, Charlie has helped to oversee many programs, including the Land Trust, YCC, CBI, and milfoil mitigation. Charlie's vast experience in identifying and evaluating erosion sites involving roads, culverts, and shoreline properties around the Belgrade Lakes will help us to understand the importance of protecting our shorelines. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for the introduction, Linda. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And let me know if I need to adjust, sound or anything from this end. I will, without further ado, talk about the 319 program, at least start there, and then I'm happy to try to answer any questions. And so everyone recognizes where we're starting. I am going to try to forward it. This is, are these programs going to be available on your website afterwards? And the reason I'm asking is there's a fair amount of information here which really describes the program. And I'll read a little bit of it, but I'm not going to read it all. And if people want to refer to it later, I want to let them do that. But the 319 program, just to start, is a part of the Clean Water Act that is now going on 50 years old. It is the US EPA Clean Water Act, and Section 319 allows for funding to clean up the nation's waters. And in particular, in Maine, it's administered by the Maine DEP, and their money is focused towards primarily cleaning lakes. And those lakes that qualify are considered by Maine DEP either threatened or impaired lakes. So it's a subset of all the lakes in Maine, which we have, close to 6,000. There's somewhere in the order of about 200 that are either threatened or impaired. So the other qualification for getting the money to fix lake problems and erosion problems in particular is that there's a plan to implement best management practices. And Jody mentioned best management practices similar to what's been going on at the Grange, planting buffers, putting in the infiltration steps, putting in rain gardens, etc. And this money can go towards those kinds of projects. It also can be used for larger projects with towns, with road associations, with private homeowners, having to do with improving roads. And in particular, when we're looking at improving roads, often some of the things that we're doing is doing ditching, improving the road materials, improving the culverts. Often culverts have been installed that are too small. So often some of the money goes towards upsizing culverts. And we'll look at a few pictures of certain projects, mostly on North Pond, but a couple of other projects that we've done, just so that you get a flavor of, for that. One of the things that's worth noting in North Pond is that we are just wrapping up one grant that Maine DEP gave us that did some allowed us to do projects in 2018 and 2019. We have a new grant this year that allow us to do projects in 2020 and 2021. So if you feel you may have a project that may qualify for this funding, please call me or shoot me an email, and I will, get together with you and see whether it would qualify, and then we can draw up a management agreement to do work on your road or another project that's related to primarily erosion control. If you have read down through this list of information here, one of the other projects we were able to do with Maine DEP funding was the East Pond Allen project a couple of years ago. Maine DEP provided about $250,000 for the project. It was a $1 million project. And as you probably know, East Pond fundraised quite a bit. Seven Lakes was able to get a large foundation grant, and together with the Maine DEP money, we were able to do the East Pond Allen project, which ultimately, as you know, flows downhill and helps improve North Pond water quality. Unfortunately, Allen projects typically are good for about 10 to 20 years. So in addition to doing this project to immediately improve water quality, a fair amount of watershed erosion control work should also be done on East Pond in addition to North Pond to make sure those benefits last into the future. And that's one of the messages that we have been talking about throughout the watershed, not only on East Pond, but also on Great Pond and some of the other lakes. If you want to do anything in the lake that's going to make a big impact, the way it's going to last is by essentially becoming lake smart, implementing best management practices, doing it yourself, hiring the YCC, hiring us to do a 319 project, or working with a private contractor to implement best management practices. And Lauren will get into some of the details on those later when talking about the Youth Conservation Corps as well. The latest you'll see here at the bottom, we were awarded a grant in 2019, again for 2020 and 2021, for close to $120,000 to do projects on North Pond. Most of that money's already been committed. For example, we're working with the town of Mercer to improve the pond road. We're looking at bids now, and we'll be selecting a contractor to do work later this year. We're really wanting to rebuild the entire pond road, the section that's gravel, to make sure that drainage is improved, road materials are improved, and ultimately less dirt is getting into the lake. So anyway, that's a little bit of background on the 319 program. I'm going to start moving to the pictures. This particular picture I just happen to like. This is a project we did on Long Pond back in 2016. It was it was a 3-foot culvert that we replaced with a 10-foot culvert to better fit the stream and allow for better flow. And what had been happening is the culvert, because it was so small, was overtopping the road and eroding the road every 5 or 10 years. It was also rotten. It had rusted and was falling in. So it became a very good project for a 319 grant. And the contractor, I think, did some excellent rock work, which is why I like the picture. And I include it in this presentation, even though it's not on North Pond. I mentioned the East Pond alum treatment that was done in 2018. So far, so good. The water clarity in East Pond has improved markedly. They have not had an algal bloom since the treatment, and we're hoping it lasts 10 to 20 years. As I mentioned, it's a major project, requires a fair amount of permitting by Maine DEP, but it can be an option on the appropriate lake. This is where the money from the first North Pond grant was spent, one section. It is part of North Shore Drive. This is a town road, so we worked with the town of Smithfield. We split the cost of this. That's one important thing to note with 319 money is it's pretty much a 50-50 grant. So we can put up about 50% of the project funding, and the landowner has to put up the other 50%, plus or minus. And in this case, the town of Smithfield agreed to work on this project with us. The contractor was a local contractor, the Warren Brothers. The town of Smithfield had put riprap along here in the past. It was round rock. Some of it was slumping into the lake. There was ongoing erosion at the site. It was identified during a survey a couple of years earlier as having ongoing erosion. So we wrote it into the grant, and we're able to put significant funding to address the issue there. This is a picture from 2018. We did an additional 75 feet of shorefront in 2019. Altogether, I believe it was approximately 325 feet of shorefront that was protected along the lake. The money also went to working with Maine DOT. This money can be used by town governments, state governments, private homeowners, so it's very flexible. This is Route 137 Lakeview Drive. It was a project with Maine DOT. Maine DOT was using federal money, so they had to put up a guardrail because of the steepness of the slope. And again, a fair amount of riprap. And you'll see above the riprap are erosion control blankets. What happens on a project like this, in order to stabilize the soils, is we'll seed it heavily and put on erosion control blanket or hay. Hay's great when the ground is flat, but erosion control blanket like this, it's in long 4-foot strips that they roll out. It really holds the slope much better and does not wash down the hill like mulch will or like hay will. And the following year, 2019, the North Pond Association spent significant money, something over $3,000, planting a buffer in here with money that was donated in memory of the Bushnells. And so I just wanted to make note of that, and the fact that we did, and North Pond Association in particular, did buffer plantings in this area the following year. We're hoping to do the same thing on the North Shore Drive area, adding buffer to that, but you know, the homeowners ultimately have to agree to that. So Maine DOT in this case did agree to it, and when we're encouraging buffers, 10 feet is better than 0, 25 feet is better than 10 feet, and 100 feet is, when you do a new development on any of the lakes in Maine since the mid-70s, the buffers are required to be 100 feet. So as you can tell, many of these homes went in way before the 1970s. So we're trying to recover buffer for many properties in the state. As you know, it makes a difference. Last year, we did a major project, again, with that same first North Pond grant on Merrill Lane. Merrill Lane is about a half-mile gravel road. It is next to the Serpentine, and I can say a number of things that were at fault, so to speak, with respect to erosion getting into the Serpentine from Merrill Lane. The road lacked ditching. It had very poor gravel materials. It was built next to a wet area, so the road was constantly wet, and it was rutting. There were potholes, and a lot of that water would then get into what ditches there were, and into the culverts and into the Serpentine. So we worked with the landowners along the road. We worked with the other landowner on one side of the road are the Labbies, and Rick Labby did the project and donated a significant amount of his labor for free in order to get match for the project. And altogether, every homeowner on the road, even though they're not a road association, contributed to the project, and North Pond Association contributed money to the project as match as well, as did East Pond Association, to their credit. So what we're hoping to do in projects like this is to, again, reduce erosion, getting into the lake to improve water quality and reduce algal blooms in the future. The other part of what we're doing, which is similar to what we're doing today, is running workshops or webinars. We haven't done many webinars in the past, but we're learning how to do that. And in the past, we tried to bring people together, do road workshops. Last year's workshop featured speakers in the morning, and then field work in the afternoon, as well as some legal road association work in the afternoon. And the field activities involve going out and looking at culvert sites and ditch sites and basically problem erosion sites nearby our offices in Belgrade Lakes, and then really talking with some of the experts on how to rebuild your camp road, how to improve your ditching, culverts, road materials, maintenance activities, etc. So a large part of our being able to get things done and be successful is teaming up with many people, the lake associations, homeowners, Maine DEP, the towns, road associations, etc., in order to work as a team to fix problems. Somebody, when I first got in this business about 8 years ago, who had worked at Maine DEP, Roy Bouchard, described erosion as death by 1,000 cuts. And that image is unfortunately still, I think, alive and true. I wouldn't say well, but every time there's an erosion issue around the watershed, water flows downhill, and that dirt is going to move. So if we can find ways to prevent that dirt from getting in the lake, the dirt is the part that's carrying the phosphorus, we're going to get ahead of these algae problems in the future. But it, just like, it's sort of death by 1,000 cuts, the fixes are going to take 1,000 fixes. So again, that gets to the team effort and why we need every landowner on board for addressing the issues on their property to reduce erosion into the lake, and ultimately we'll get ahead of this. But it's going to take a long-term team effort to implement this, and that's wwhy we're here today. Money. Everybody says, how much money did we bring into the watershed? So I would prepare this for today, but I've also prepared something similar for Great Pond and BLA in the last couple of days as well. So just since approximately 2015, we've brought in something over 600,000 in Maine DEP grants to fix problems in the watershed, bringing in, as you can see, something over $1 million in match and close to $2 million of spending. Now, half of that is the East Pond Alum project. The other half are erosion projects within the watershed. The last two are North Pond 1 and North Pond 2. So in the last few years, we've brought in about 200,000 to North Pond. And again, we're looking at close to and something over $200,000 in match. Now, a big chunk of that was that Maine DOT project. Maine DOT is an expensive customer, but they do good work. And we're hoping this 2021 project, the new North Pond grant, that money has not been delivered yet because the projects haven't been done yet. But we're obligated to bring in $112,000 of match. And last year, the towns of Mercer and Smithfield voted to put money into road improvement projects around the watershed. So when you see your selectmen, please thank them for their support of these projects as well. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just talk about water quality. Danielle Wayne, our science director, prepared the next couple of slides. And I just want to touch on that because that's why we're here ultimately. Fixing dirt problems, I enjoy it, but it's not exciting for everybody. I know Jody and Linda enjoy it as well, as does Lauren, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. At the end of the day, we're doing it to improve water quality and to prevent algal blooms. And that next slides are what that's all about. And I thought I would digress for 5 minutes and then pass it over to questions and then pass it over to Lauren. This is the graphs from last year's SECI, which is the transparency of the water, and the dissolved oxygen and phosphorus. On the upper graph, you'll see the water, it also is a temperature graph. So the upper graph, the blue is cool water, the red is warm water as it heats during the summer. You'll see at the bottom, May 1st, July 1st, September 1st, November 1st. So I won't get into it in detail, but you'll see that the SECI symbols are those little, pinwheels, and they start off, 10 to 15 feet early in the summer, but they get up to about, 6 to 8 feet during the middle of the summer when it's hot. And the reason they're doing that, the reason water clarity is, getting worse during the course of the summer, you'll look on the bottom graph, is that there's more and more phosphorus, which are those white circles. More and more phosphorus is getting into the lake, and it's caused at least partially because of the dissolved oxygen becoming, there's less of it in the lake. And when there is less oxygen where the sediments of the lakes are, it will release phosphorus into the water, which will, phosphorus is plant food. So the algae eat the phosphorus or absorb the phosphorus and grow, and in not only in size but volume, particularly in volume, and that will make the water clarity get worse during the course of the summer. So we're trying to get ahead of this by studying the lakes better and by understanding these mechanisms better. But we're still in the middle of understanding North Pond situation, and I understand the water, quality this year is of concern again. 2019 was a good year, and I know 2018 was terrible. So we are trying to work with you to address these issues, both through the science and then doing things on the ground to reduce dirt getting into the lake. And the other area that I want to mention, which LakeSmart also cares about and pays a lot of attention to, are septic systems. We think that because of the sand and gravel soils around around North Pond, that it's likely, we don't know this for sure, but it's likely that septic systems are playing a role in North Pond water quality issues, in addition to dirt and erosion. And for that reason, I would encourage people to pay attention to their maintenance of their septic systems, pump them out regularly. As you hear those messages, it may be a significant factor in North Pond. And part of the job, I think, of the science team going forward is to better understand that and address the issue if indeed it is a significant issue. 2018, which is when you had your algal bloom, you can see that the Secchi on the upper graph got lower than 5 feet, which is that is algal bloom territory, according to Maine DEP's definition, which is 2 meters or about 6 or 7 feet. And you can see that for a good chunk of the summer, you were, as you know, because you were living it, you were dealing with an algal bloom. It's close to that this year, I understand. You also look on the bottom graph, again, those bubbles they look like bubbles, but they're really phosphorus as it's measured at different depths in the water column. They're getting bigger during the course of the year and bigger during the course of the summer, and that's feeding the algae. Over time, you can see the graphs going back to 1970 for Secchi, again, which is the transparency. Maine DEP says that you're basically getting into a eutrophic lake status, or as Danielle labeled it, bad, at about 4 meters or about 12 feet. And you can see that there's a dot for 2018, which is the average for 2018 was the worst on record since 1970. And that was the year that you had your algal bloom. So I just want to say that, one, we're tracking it, and two, it's doing this kind of work that allows us to get a handle on what some of the dynamics are. And again, we need to understand more issues around the lake, not only the dirt issues and the transparency and phosphorus issues, but the septic issues. And finally, this year's phosphorus levels. You can see this year phosphorus, every measurement we've had, except for one, has been 20 parts per billion or over, which again is algal bloom territory. And that is what's driving the algae issues in the lake. And what is of concern to all of us going forward is reducing phosphorus in the lake. And the only things that we really have control of are dirt and erosion and septic. So again, I want to underline that message in these slides. Not to go on any longer, please, I'm going to wrap up, and if you have a question, please ask, or I'll pass it along to Lauren.
There are 2 questions in the Q&A section, Charlie. I don't know if you can see that. It might be easier if you stop sharing your screen.
Sure.
There's a little Q&A.
So which one are you referring to? Sorry.
I'm
looking at chat.
There's a Q&A button on your dashboard, like near the.
Okay, I see that. Yep.
Yep, and there's 2 questions in there.
The first question I'm reading asks, does the proposed work on Pond Road and Mercer include the road south of Island View where the road turns from pavement to dirt? The answer is yes. The proposed project, depending on where the bids are and our ability to, basically, do we have enough money to, address the issues on the road? Basically, our plan is to rebuild the entire 1.1 mile of that road, and specifically the gravel section. So it's basically the entire public road gravel section of Pond Road is proposed to be rebuilt, starting essentially at the culverts at Patty Brook and then heading south along the lake. So that's the quick answer. We're going to start, the proposal is to start by doing all of the ditching, culvert work, and drainage work first, and then as monies permit, to improve the road materials as well. On that other road I showed you, Merrill Lane, we also added geotextile to the base of the road in order to build it up and prevent the good materials that we were adding to the surface of the road from being compressed into the underlying mud. And in certain sections of Pond Road, that might be necessary as well. But the quick answer is yes, we're hoping to rebuild the entire dirt road. And I see a second question here. Is North Pond considered one of the 200 or so lakes? Yes. North Pond is considered by Maine DEP. It's currently ranked as threatened. The list of impaired lakes is actually quite a bit smaller. It's probably 10% of that list of 200. Maggie may know the precise number, but essentially 20 to 30 lakes are listed as impaired. The other 170 or so are threatened. And I had a conversation with Linda Bacon at Maine DEP today, not today, but earlier this week, a couple of days ago. And it's possible that North Pond could be, its designation may be changed from threatened to impaired, particularly if there is an algal bloom this summer. But that has not been decided yet and is under discussion. Sheila Levitt asks, does 319 include private roads? Yes, it does. So private roads, driveways, yes, are included and are eligible for funding, in addition to public roads. And Kelly Marshall then asks, could you please put up the slide with this year's North Pond testing results up again, please? Yes, I'll share my screen again. And then if you have a question around it, let me know. So, Lauren, can you, I'm not sure if this is the, let me see, there. On the far right is the latest phosphorus, you'll see the latest Secchi disc number, which is close to 2 meters, which is close to algal bloom. They haven't run the phosphorus sample yet, which is why there's not a phosphorus number attached to that. You'll notice that in the slide from a couple of years earlier, this is the 2018 slide, which may be most relevant to this year's issues. When the algal bloom, got to about 2 meters at about day 210, which is approximately, I believe, August 1st. The phosphorus, you'll see right after that, about day 220, there's this red mark in the bottom graph on the dissolved oxygen graph. that designates that it was very low oxygen, and at that point is when the phosphorus is released from the sediments. You'll see earlier large phosphorus numbers as well from 2018. It may be that we missed the low oxygen earlier in the year, or there may be other mechanisms releasing large phosphorus into the lake, like runoff or other events that would not be captured by these graphs. So these graphs are part of the story. They're not all of the story. It says nothing about septic systems. It says nothing about big spring runoff events caused by big, storms. One of the issues we're dealing with in the Northeast, I'll just mention this, is larger, more frequent storm events. Even though we're getting, a month of drought, the next month we're getting large storms. And that large storm runoff is carrying dirt and phosphorus into the lakes. Again, it's not being captured in these graphs. That's one of the other areas that we've talked with the science team about getting better data on, is going to the streams that surround some of these lakes and capturing phosphorus data from large storm events so that we can see how big a factor that is, which ties right into what we've discussed earlier, reducing erosion into the lakes. And I believe just in the last week, Jody's gone out with Danielle Wayne from Seven Lakes to start putting meters in the streams to better capture some of this data. Again, that's not been built into the graphs yet because we need to get the data before we can analyze it. But we're hoping to do a better job of making sure that we collect all the data that we need to fix problems, and then to share that with you as we're able to do that over the next year. Lauren, are there any other questions?
Actually, Charlie, hi, it's Linda. I can't do the Q&A because I'm on the panel. So I'm going to
I see no open questions. So seeing none, I'm happy to answer questions at the end or pass it off to Lauren for now.
Charlie, can you hear me? It's Linda.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. So a question for you, because I can't do the Q&A because I'm on the panel, so I'll do it with audio, is with all your travels around our watershed and all the big projects you've been doing, what is one of the single most important things that people can do to prevent erosion and runoff on their own properties? You talked a lot about septic systems, and we're all worried that that might be a factor contributing to North Pond's water quality. But give us a synopsis. What is it that people could just go out today and do besides plant their buffer plant?
Well, we're right now looking at Great Pond, and I only mentioned that to answer your question. And we're looking at all the sources of phosphorus in the lake. And some of the phosphorus is actually coming out of the sky, something like 20 to 25%. We can't do much about that. The things that we can do something about are dirt and septic. And with respect to dirt, what Maine did some 40 plus years ago, back in the 1970s, is to pass a shoreland zoning law. And basically it made all, development occur 100 feet back from the lake. And the reason they did that is to protect the lakes. And it's worked. It's worked pretty well. But there's a lot of homes, and North Pond is one lake that has them, that are closer than 100 feet to the lake. So to the extent that you can plant buffers, and to the extent that you can divert water that is coming onto your land into a buffer, into the woods, into a rain garden. You have a rain garden, you showed a picture earlier at the Grange. Basically slowing down the water getting it into the ground, preventing it from running over the surface into a stream, into the lake, that is going to be significant long-term for protecting the lake. Now, you're never going to fix all erosion problems. There's, even if the forest is pristine, water comes off the land, gets in the lake, it's going to carry some dirt, it's going to carry leaves. Leaves have phosphorus in them also. But what you really want to do every chance you get on an individual property is plant the buffers. 10 feet's better than 0, 25 feet's better than 10, 100 feet if you've got the space. And that doesn't mean block your view. 3 feet of plants, allow you to protect the soil and have a view. If you do want to plant a tree or two, that's good for habitat, etc. But we're not trying to sell that today. We are trying to, establish buffers, make them significant so that you are reducing runoff. And if you have any kind of concentrated flow of water in a channel on your property, make sure it doesn't go right into the lake. Make sure it gets in the woods. Make sure it gets in a rain garden. Slow down the water. Get it in the ground as much as possible. It adds up. Again, death by 1,000 cuts. It's 1,000 fixes that's going to make a difference over the next 10 years.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. And congratulations.
Oh, thank you. This is not about me. This is about all of you and all of us trying to protect our lakes, no matter where you are. How are we doing, Lauren? May I introduce you as our next speaker?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So Lauren Pickford is a Seven Lakes Alliance conservationist, and she's also the Youth Conservation Corps director. I want to take this opportunity to please, if you want to sign up for Youth Conservation Corps a site visit with Lauren or with Tyler later when he's speaking, go on chat and we'll keep track of who is signing up for a YCC visit. You may not get work done until 2021 or 2022, but our virtual sign up is on the chat line. For those who don't know what Youth Conservation Corps is, Lauren can give you an introduction to that in her presentation. So Lauren graduated from the University of Maine at Orono and is pursuing a master's degree in sustainable resource management at Unity College. Lauren manages outreach as well as directing the Youth Conservation Corps, and she also assists with development with Seven Lakes Alliance. Lauren, thank you so much for being our host, and thank you for being one of our speakers.
Thanks, Linda. So to start, I'm actually going to launch a poll. I'm curious to know what lakes people associate with. I think it's probably primarily North Pond. But if you guys can answer the poll, and I'll share those results in a minute. I'll give you like 30 seconds to answer it. It's okay if you miss it. I don't know if you can see the poll as a panelist, but the attendees can. All right, I'm gonna end the poll. So every lake except Salmon Lake is represented. Looks like one person from each of the other lakes and 17 from North Pond. I know some people didn't get to respond. So let me switch to this. just going to open my chat and stuff so I can see if anybody has questions. I don't mind questions during, that's fine with me. So I run the YCC. I'm the director, but Tyler, he's on the call as well, and he'll be talking in a minute. He's kind of doing the day-to-day. He's the assistant director this year. He's the second one from the left in this picture. So what is the YCC? I have one more question, and it is, have you heard of the YCC, or do you know what it is? So 75% of you know what it is already. So sorry if this is boring to you. So the YCC, we work to decrease erosion in the watershed. It's a group of high school and college age students. They work for 8 weeks in the summer when they're on summer break. Last year we were fortunate to have funding and the ability to have 3 crews. So we got a lot done last year, which was really awesome. This year, it's a little bit different, but I'll get to that. So we provide free or decreased cost labor on eligible projects. So if you have an erosion problem on your property that we identify or LakeSmart identifies, we can come out and do a site visit and suggest some solutions. We provide like technical support doing it. We write the permit. And you pay for materials and the permit fee, but we fill out the permit for free for you and submit it. This is a picture of Jake and Tyler doing some infiltration steps, and there's some of those at the Grange, actually. So this year we have a much smaller crew than usual because of for social distancing reasons. It's hard to manage, 15 people and trying to make sure everybody's taking their own separate vehicle. And they wear, just so you all know if you have a YCC project this year, but they wear masks when they can't social distance. But if they're more than 6 feet apart, they don't have to wear them because it's pretty physically demanding. So the service area, it's the whole Belgrade Lakes watershed. So any of the lakes, all 7 lakes, and then also like streams, like Belgrade Stream. It can be trickier working in a stream because they're managed differently in DEP's eyes. But for the most part, we can work on any of those areas. So Charlie talked about this, and this is just a photo I like to use. So this picture is it was a study that they did up north, and they sectioned off an area and they triggered an algae bloom. So like Charlie said, we're trying to minimize the amount of erosion that gets into the lake. So some of the projects that we do, and Tyler's going to show more examples of these, but we do a lot of shoreline stabilization. So this is a picture of riprap before and after. This is not my favorite example, and that's part of the reason I use it, because although they did the armoring right, there's no buffer there. So although you're not going to have that erosion from the wave action, the plants are really what's going to hold on to your shoreline long term. It's more sustainable. So when we do a riprap project, it's usually a combination. If you don't have a buffer, we're not going to do riprap without installing some type of buffer. Because it's just a more sustainable solution and it lasts a lot longer, because even though riprap works and it lasts, it does require maintenance, anywhere from 1 to 10 years, depending on how much wave action and what the ice does where you are. So this is a summary from 2019, because I don't have all the data from this year, obviously, because we're in the middle of our season. So this is just the type, like the breakdown of what we do primarily. We do a lot of mulch. We do a lot of planting. Infiltration that includes like drip line trenches, and Tyler's got some pictures of those. And shoreline stabilization is typically riprap. And then water diversion, we do like water bars and check steps. And this is a breakdown of all the lakes. This year, in 2019, we didn't do a lot of projects on Messalonskee just because of the way it worked out. We prioritize projects based on the severity of erosion and also sign up date, because we typically do have a waiting period. Last year we had like 200 people that wanted projects, and there was only 8 weeks to get it done. So there is usually a little bit of a waiting period. It's not as bad this year as it was last year, though. So how does it work? You request a YCC site visit, or some, like if you get a LakeSmart evaluation, they might recommend a YCC project for you. And then we'll come out and do a site visit, and we'll come up with some recommendations. Usually while we're there with you, we'll talk it over together and figure out what works for you and what would have the best impact. And then you pay half the cost up front, so that we can order materials and file the permit. If you need a permit, you don't always need a permit. And then the project takes place. The waiting period this year, if you were to sign up this year, we might get to it this year. But because we only have 6 people, it could be next year too. Unless, if it's really bad, if you've got chunks of dirt falling into the lake, we make it a priority, which can bump some less severe problems back, which can be frustrating. So I will say that the best way to sign up is by emailing us. Because we only have 8 weeks, we really try to focus our time and energy into getting the projects done. And we do a lot of the prep work in the off season. So if you want to sign up, if you send us an email, even if you don't hear back right away, there's a paper trail and there is evidence that you signed up, and we won't lose that. So our email's on the website as well. It's pretty simple. It's just ycc@sevenlakesalliance.org. I think that's the last one. Yeah. And I will mention that the YCC is not a contractor. So just to give you an idea, we if it's not an erosion problem, we don't do it. And sometimes we get requests to do like a patio or like something that, like, to add a fireplace area on a property. And if it's not an erosion problem, we don't do it. And it's not because we don't want to. There's 2 reasons. First of all, we don't want to increase development around the lake, obviously. But the second reason is that we fundraise all year, and we're funded by lake associations, towns, private funding in order to decrease erosion. So if it's not an erosion problem, we really can't use our resources on that. But installing a buffer garden is definitely something we can do, and we like to do it. It's probably one of the more enjoyable projects that we do. So if you have a bunch of plants that need to go in the ground and you're unable to do that, we might be able to help you with that. I think that's my only thing. I was going to ask one more question about how many people have had a YCC project before, or if you're on the waiting list right now. And Tyler's going to show you some specifics of the types of things that we do. Just going to give this one more second. So 63% of people have already had a YCC project, which is pretty cool. And the one person on the waiting list, hopefully, I don't think we've forgotten you. You're probably on our long list. We've got a spreadsheet going. I noticed that Pine Tree Camps was on the call today. I wonder if they're still on. They are. So Tyler is going to talk about and show some pictures of projects that we've done at Pine Tree Camp. Some of them, anyways. We don't have all the pictures from it. We're all working from home, so it's a little bit harder to access some files right now. But he's going to show some pictures from Pine Tree Camps and some other projects. Yeah, I think I'm all set. If anyone has questions, feel free to let me know, and I can post the YCC's email in here.
So thank you, Lauren. On our chat, I'm also reaching out to people about LakeSmart.
Yep.
sometimes directly to individuals and not to all the attendees. And something that's really important to note, just from Charlie's presentation and from yours, is LakeSmart is directly connected to the success of 319 grants. It's part of our watershed-based protection plan that we must have LakeSmart visits, evaluations on North Pond, a minimum of 5 a summer for the next 10 years. So if anyone is interested in signing up for LakeSmart, again, for me, you can email me if you want, or you can just say, I would like a LakeSmart visit, and just say it on the chat, because I'm trying to sign up people as we go, and Lauren's signing up people through email on YCC. The key is to these workshops is to reach out and help all of you find ways of protecting your lakes from erosion and runoff. And the YCC and buffers are a way. LakeSmart gives you all kinds of ideas and advice on how to stop the runoff. So, all right. If we're ready to move forward with Tyler, Tyler, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Tyler. All right. So, as Lauren said, Tyler is the assistant director of the Seven Lakes Alliance Youth Conservation Corps. And he's actually been working for Seven Lakes Alliance for the past 4 years. He grew up in Oakland, Maine, surrounded by all of our lakes, our beautiful lakes. He currently attends the University of New England, majoring in medical biology with a dental track. And I've always heard great things from those who took advantage of YCC. The crew is really great. They're really friendly. They try really hard to do what we would like in our properties. And that is part of Tyler's legacy with YCC, as it were. It's a great group of kids. And I would recommend anyone who hasn't to check out YCC and see if there's anything they can do on your property. All right, Tyler, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Let me share my screen. So I'm gonna kind of just go over some of the projects that we've done specifically at Pine Tree Camps, and then there are a couple at the end that were also on North Pond. I think once on a different lake, but yeah. So at North Pond, this area was a major concern. As you can see, there's some sparse grass and some dirt that was there beforehand. You kind of can see it on the picture up on the left. But basically what we did was made a water diverter, which would hold back water and dirt from just running into the lake. Unfortunately, I don't have before pictures. I'm sorry about that. But so another project that we did at Pine Tree, as well as most places that we go, are mulch pathways. This one was quite long. It runs along the shoreline. Basically, what this does is kind of help hold back any sediment that could possibly run into the lake. It's awesome for slopes as well because it's a thicker mulch. We use an erosion control mulch mix, which works great.
Do you want to mention bark mulch and why we don't use it?
Yeah, so we don't use bark mulch basically because a lot of times the bark mulch will float. This often leads to it just running into the lake, which then defeats the purpose, I guess, of preventing the erosion.
And Tyler, can you explain what ECM is made of, or
Yeah.
let people understand what the difference is between typical garden mulch or contractor mulch and erosion control mulch?
Yes. So erosion control mulch is a mix of a lot of the like heavier parts of the tree, stuff like bark. It also has some finer particles in it as well. It has a mixture of some rocks. Usually we leave the smaller rocks, we take out the larger rocks that, you know, someone could roll an ankle on. But basically what this does is it grids down, so that way, unlike the stuff that floats into the lake, this will just kind of pack down nicely and stay there.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah. So another project or BMP that we do a lot as well is drip lines. Basically what a drip line is a trench that's dug about a foot deep. We add geotextile in it as well, and then we put crushed rock and then bury that all with more crushed rock. What that helps to do is prevent splashback on houses, which then can erode away the side of someone's house. It also helps to prevent runoff from roofs. Yeah.
And could you explain, Tyler, what geotextile is for those who don't know exactly what it is?
Geotextile is like a woven black fabric, which helps let water infiltrate slower into the ground.
Thanks.
Yeah. So another BMP that we do as well is dry wells. Dry wells typically found somewhere where a heavy concentrated flow of water could fall. So you can see here, this is possibly a part of a gutter where, you know, water will collect. And basically that would just erode away that area. So we dig a hole pretty deep, about 3 feet usually, and that is filled with crushed stone. And that water then can just kind of trickle down that crushed stone and gradually go into the ground instead of just washing out that area. We also do rain gardens. Rain gardens are typically big projects, but here's one that we did on North Pond. We try to find a natural dip. If we can't, then, you know, we dig a hole. You saw at the beginning of my slideshow, that was actually us digging this rain garden out. And typically what we do is we have the homeowner purchase the plants, and then we put the plants that prefer the most amount of water towards the center of that rain garden. They'll thrive better there, and then gradually kind of go out with the plants that, you know, don't like as much water. It's also a great way to catch runoff before it just goes straight into the lake as well. So this is on North Pond. Actually, this is at Sheila Levitt's. And these are a pair of infiltration steps that we built. But basically, we find a slope that can take infiltration steps somewhere where runoff is basically just kind of taking soil and debris and stuff. And we build them out of 6x6s, and then they're filled in with crushed stone. So that way when water does run off, it infiltrates the stone rather than taking material and going straight to the lake. It slows down that flow of water. And then here is a picture of riprap. This is actually at Crystal Springs on, I think, Belgrade Lakes. Yeah, so basically we armor the shoreline so that way, you know, wave action as well as ice action doesn't just take debris and basically remove land. But yeah, and you can also see they have a nice buffer with a lot of duff as well, which is awesome for preventing that erosion from happening. And I think that's all I have. If you have questions,